Good morning, everybody. What if the road that's forming you isn't paved or polished, but rough, slow, and a little bit dusty? What if the road that's shaping your creativity, your faith, your identity doesn't feel impressive at all, but maybe just kind of quiet and a little bit lonely? Hey, friends. Welcome to Field Notes from the Gravel Road. I am Michelle Hill, and each Saturday I meet you here, porchside, for a set apart moment at the intersection of faith, creativity, and becoming. It's not a tutorial, it's just a pause, a place to realign. Wherever you're listening from, I am so glad that you're here. So last week, we wrapped up the Creativity Manifesto series. It was 7 weeks of exploring what we believe about art and faith and formation. But before we move into the next theme, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I want to talk to you about the name of my company, Grace and the Gravel Road. I realized I had never done that, and I have always intended to. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to talk about why it still matters, that it's not just a title, it's not just a metaphor. Instead, it's a way of seeing and a way of living and a way of making. So today, that's where we're going. We're walking slow, we're paying attention. Let's see what the gravel road can teach us. I didn't grow up driving gravel roads, but I have lived at the end of a series of mile-long gravel drives for most of my adult life. They shape you. They ask something different of you than pavement does. On a gravel road, you can't go fast without consequence. You have to slow down whether you want to or not. You feel the terrain under your tires, in your body. You're more aware, more present, more engaged with where you are. I think that's one of the reasons that I love them. Because as much as I love momentum and clarity and progress, the seasons of my life that have actually formed me have rarely been fast. They've been slow. They've been uneven. They've required attention that I didn't even know I had. And in some ways, that's what the spiritual journey is like as well. It's not a freeway. It's not a straight shot. It's not even always moving forward. Much more like a gravel road. There's a passage in Proverbs 4:26. That is the passage. Proverbs 4:26 says, "Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways." It's not a glamorous verse. It's not one that gets printed on mugs or stitched into embroidery, but it's one that I really appreciate. It's about living with intention. And there are times in life when the work is just that, being intentional, being thoughtful, placing your feet one step at a time, staying steady on a path that doesn't feel smooth or clear. And maybe that's one of the gifts of a gravel road. It refuses to let you disengage. You can't really coast. You can't daydream your way down it. You have to be with it, awake to the things around you. I think that's one of the things that Jesus meant when he said, love your neighbor as yourself in Mark 12. Because you can't love your neighbor if you're always speeding past them. You can't offer presence if you're always in a hurry. Back roads make you see people, see where you're walking, see life unfolding right beside you. Walking on gravel is different too. It's not like a track or a sidewalk. It hurts sometimes. You have to pay attention to where your feet are going. You notice every rock, especially if you're barefoot. And that's not a flaw. That's a feature. Because it reminds us that faith isn't always soft and smooth. Sometimes it's jagged and slow. Sometimes it requires real intention just to keep walking. But that doesn't mean that something's wrong. It means you're right where formation happens. Deuteronomy 8:2 says, "Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble you and test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands." That verse has always struck me because it doesn't say that God rushed them through the wilderness. It says God led them. I bet they wished he had rushed them, but he didn't. He took them at the speed that they needed all the way through it. And gravel roads let you do that too. They don't let you bypass the landscape. They invite you to know it, to live inside it, to see what's being formed in you, not just where you're going. And that's the kind of life that I want to live, not fast or polished, but real, attentive, and present, shaped by the road that I'm actually on. A lot of people think that grace is something that you get after the breakthrough, after the apology, after the quiet time or the spiritual win, after you've done something to need it, or after you've figured out how to be less of a hot mess, less of who you really are. But that's not how it works. Grace is not waiting at the finish line. It's walking with you right now, on the hard days, on the tired days, on the days when your best prayer is a sigh and a second cup of coffee. One of the voices who helped me see this was Brennan Manning. I love Brennan Manning's writings because he speaks as one so familiar with the gravel road. I met him once, and I've never been in the presence of someone so I'm not even sure how to explain it. Let me just say that when I walked into the conference room where he was standing and speaking to a small group of people, the Holy Spirit was so present that I could hardly speak. It was one of the most impactful spiritual moments of my life. He wrote, "My deepest awareness of myself is that I am deeply loved by Jesus Christ, and I have done nothing to earn it or deserve it." That line still undoes me because it's not just theological, it's personal. It's something that I have to come back to again and again, that I am loved, not because I'm doing well, not because I've got everything aligned and in order, but just because. Lamentations 3:22 and 23 says, "Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." And it seems like that should mean that every morning I'll wake up with a clean slate and fresh energy. But some mornings I wake up still with gravel in my shoes, grief that hasn't moved, fatigue that hasn't lifted, questions still unanswered. And yet, compassion meets me there. Mercy still comes, even when I don't deserve it, even when I'm not sure I believe it. There's a story in Luke 24, right after the resurrection. Two men are walking away from Jerusalem, confused and heartbroken. Jesus has died. Their world, all of their expectations for what was going to happen next, have completely collapsed. And they're just walking, trying to make sense of it all. And Jesus joins them. He doesn't correct them right away. Excuse me. Hang on just a second. All right. He doesn't correct them right away. He doesn't tell them to hurry back. He just walks and listens and asks questions. And later, only later, they realize and they say, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked to us on the road?" And that's what grace is like. It's not always loud or obvious, not a lightning strike, but a presence, patient, attentive, and unhurried. Grace doesn't demand that you get it together. It joins you where you already are, even when you take a wrong turn and even when you don't recognize it, even when your heart is breaking and you don't have words. And maybe that's the real miracle, that grace doesn't need us to clean the road up. It walks right into the gravel, into the dust, into the uneven, ordinary, unpolished places. And it says, "I'll walk with you. Emmanuel, God with us." All right, it's going to be one of those days. Hold on. Oh, something caught right in the back of my throat. One of the things that I have learned from living at the end of a gravel road is this. You see your neighbors, not just metaphorically. You actually see them. You notice when someone is out in their yard. You wave when someone drives past. You see the wildflowers on the shoulder and the goats in the yard and the handmade signs at the mailbox. It's not the kind of road that you speed through. It's the kind of road that invites engagement, that insists on it, actually. So, as I mentioned before, when Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, I don't think he meant it as a metaphor. I think he meant pay attention to whoever is near you, the people, the place, the story unfolding right in front of you. But here's the thing. You can't love your neighbor if you never slow down enough to see them. You can't be present if your soul is always 10 steps ahead, chasing the next thing. Back roads don't just shape the pace of your car, they shape the posture of your heart. They invite you to notice what's blooming in the ditch, to see whose porch light is always on, to remember that the world is not made of tasks and goals and next things. It's made of people, of place, of presence. There's a line that we commonly attribute to Wendell Berry that says, the world is not given by our fathers, but borrowed from our children. I'm sure you've heard that before. And whether or not you have children of your own, it still lands, because when you live in community, you begin to realize how interwoven we are. Can y'all hear that? Really loud cicadas over here, just while I'm talking. All right. Because when you live in community, you begin to realize how interwoven we are. Your pace impacts theirs. Your presence shapes theirs. Your kindness, your words, your attention, they ripple. That's why gravel roads aren't just inconvenient, they're formational, because they make you aware of where you are. And when you're aware of where you are, you can actually love what's there. You can be the kind of person who waves first, who stops to help, who tends what you've been shown, instead of chasing what's next. And that is not a small thing. That's what it looks like to walk humbly and love mercy and do justice, not in theory, but right here in your everyday. When the person in front of you, with the land beneath your feet, with the day you've been handed. You don't have to live on a gravel road to live this way, to be saturated in the awareness of who and what is around you. But the name reminds me how important it is. So the Micah 6:8 verse that I mentioned a second ago, what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And some days that might look like standing on your porch with a glass of tea and listening to your child, really listening. Or letting someone go first in the checkout line, not because you've counted their groceries, but because you notice that they're exhausted. Or maybe it's naming the beauty in someone's work when they can't see it themselves. Or simply or simply slowing your life down enough to notice. And that's what I mean by loving what's nearby. It's not abstract, it's not poetic, it's the daily work of living with a perspective that makes you look up and realizing that grace doesn't just meet you in the big spiritual moments. It meets you in the garden, in the gravel, in the neighbor's wave, and in the practice of seeing what's already here. There's one more layer that I want to name before we close today, and it's about creativity. Because for me, the gravel road metaphor isn't just about the spiritual journey, it is also about the creative one. The more I think about it, the more I realize that the road is the creative process. A gravel road isn't smooth, it's uneven, it can be unpredictable, and sometimes frustrating. And that's exactly what creativity feels like too. You start with an idea and you think you know where it's going, and then a detour, a roadblock, a stretch of road that you didn't expect that shakes you of your confidence. But the path is still there. And if you keep going intentionally, you will be shaped by it. Not in spite of the rough places, but because of them. There's no cruise control on a gravel road, and there's none in the creative life either. You have to stay awake. You have to adjust, to pay attention to what's underfoot, to what's rising up around you. That's the work of the artist, the maker, the writer, to be present, even when it's uncomfortable, to keep creating even when you're unsure. Gravel roads teach you resilience, not because, wait a minute, sorry, distracted by the landscape in front of me. Gravel roads teach you resilience because you can't rush through them. You have to adapt. That kind of adaptability, that willingness to change plans, to revise, to rebuild, to find a new route, that is core to the creative process. It's not about control, it's about cooperation with the material and the moment and what God might be unfolding as you move. And gravel roads don't just mirror creativity, they train us for it. They teach us patience and slowness. They cultivate in us the very things that we need to create meaningful work. Because creativity isn't just inspiration, it's endurance, it's attention, it's presence. And presence is what gravel roads demand. They also teach you to find beauty where it's easy to miss. You don't go looking for grand vistas on a gravel road, but sometimes in the silence, in the dust, in the way that the sun hits a curve just right, you find it anyway. That's what creative people do. We practice seeing. We practice listening. We practice finding the holy in the unplanned moment. And like gravel roads, creative work leaves marks. Dust on your shoes, scratches on your car, a story in your bones. You don't always come out clean, but you come out changed. And maybe that's the real invitation here, to let your creative life be shaped by the same truths that this road is already teaching you. That perfection is not the goal, that presence is where the magic is, that faithfulness is often quiet and covered in dust. So maybe you're wondering, what do I do with this? What does it look like to live a gravel road kind of faith? To walk with grace, to love what's near, to stay present when everything in you wants to rush ahead, to recognize the evidence of grace in the midst. There's no formula for that. I wish there was, but I'm going to offer you a few simple practices, ways to step into that. 1, practice going slower than is actually necessary. Even once this live is over, see if you can move a little more slowly. Not because slow is better, but because slow is aware. Let the coffee brew a little longer. I mean, don't ruin it, of course, but maybe let it linger. Let your steps feel the ground beneath you. Let your conversations extend. Just for a day, resist the pull to maximize and choose to notice and linger instead. 2, pay attention to what's already here. You don't have to chase beauty. You just have to see it. What is blooming by the side of your road? What neighbor needs a wave or a word? What grace have you already been given today that you didn't maybe recognize at first? Maybe the sacredness isn't coming. Maybe it is already present in this very moment, in this place, in you. 3, make something without needing it to be useful. Creativity on the gravel road isn't for production. It's for presence. What if you made something this week just to remember who you are and who God is? Not to impress, not to sell, not to share, just to remember. A short poem, a messy collage, a stitched line, a half-written prayer. Let it be unfinished. Let it be awkward. Let it be honest. 4, let grace walk with you. You don't have to clean up to be loved. You don't have to feel strong to be carried. Let grace travel with you through the dust, through the noise, through the detours that you didn't plan. And 5, lastly, make eye contact with your day. Look at someone long enough to really see them. Look at a flower long enough to see its texture. Look at your own hands and say, see what you've done today. I'll tell you a story about one of the things that I love to do. This is a short one. We're almost done. I love to watch sunsets, but not the way that most people do. I like to watch the whole thing from start to finish. I remember one on top of a hill in an Indiana state park and seeing the tourists drive up, pile out of their vans, take a photo, mill around for a few minutes and talk, and then pile back in and move on. This happened over and over, and they saw a beautiful moment. They experienced a beautiful moment. But we were there for almost 2 hours, watching the light change and the colors shift. We experienced the sunset. Try experiencing something, a sunrise, a rainstorm, a conversation, in the same way that I experienced that sunset. Stay with it. Notice the subtle changes over time. So, this wasn't a series. Think of it as an introduction to gravel road living, a walk into the name that's been sitting at the top of my website page for a long time now, Grace and the Gravel Road. It's a chance to wonder together what that might be saying to you. We've talked about what gravel roads require: attention and slowness and presence. We've talked about the way that grace meets us not at the finish line, but in the mess, in the middle, in the dust. Walking with God is less about how fast you're moving and more about the withness of the journey. We've remembered that loving our neighbor starts with seeing them, and that grace, real grace, will never rush you past what matters. So if you're walking a tough road right now, if you're aching or doubting or just tired, you are on the kind of road where God often does his best work, not by fixing everything, but by being with you in it and reminding him, reminding you of who he is and who holds you. So as you head into your week, here's the blessing I want to leave you with. May you walk slowly enough to notice what's blooming. May you be interrupted by beauty and not apologize for that. May grace meet you in the ruts and in the dust and in the parts of the journey that don't make sense yet. And may you know deep in your bones that you are not alone on this road. Not today, not ever. And of course, I will be right here next Saturday on the porch if you would like to come on back. I would love to have you. Until then, wherever your road takes you this week, may grace meet you there. Now, I'm going to walk that back for just a moment. Next week, I will not be right here on the porch next Saturday. I am taking a week off. We're traveling next week, and I will not be able to be here. So, not next Saturday. Come back 2 weeks from today, and I will meet you right back here. Hope you guys have a fantastic 2 weeks.